Wealth is a Choice podcast. Boom.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
Hey, John.
How you doing, James?
Good. So you're actually, this is the second time you've been on the podcast.
I know.
You're the only person that's been on 2 times.
Well, I feel honored by that. So I didn't totally blow it the first time then.
No, very good.
That's
A
great.
lot of views, good information. Fantastic.
I love what you're doing. I love the this is what I love about podcasting, good podcasting that goes deeper into things, because we need to get people thinking deeper about the issues that they're seeing. And right now, so many people, they only get the headlines or the one piece of sort of inflammatory rhetoric, which sets off a big debate, but they don't get deeper into some of the issues we face, and some of them are pretty complex. So
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I can pull this up quickly. I just saw a joke the other day. I love these little jokes that come through. What was this one? It was, shoot, see, I'm trying to pull some up and I'm not going to be able to get to it quickly. Here it is. So the Babylon Bee, I don't know if you ever see the Babylon
Sure.
Bee.
Yeah.
So the picture of this dude kind of frustrated looking at his computer, and it says, it's a really efficient way to be mad. A smart man saves time by getting angry now instead of waiting until all the facts are known.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. I actually had this conversation with a Democratic colleague of mine who was all upset about something Trump had said. And there's certainly things that things are good that are happening and things that are not so good that are happening right now. But she was all upset about something. I said, first of all, you need to understand it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And so by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he might say the exact opposite,
Yeah.
which is sort of what happens. But I said, what I really think you need to do is stop watching the news so much.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like I was crazy. I said, you don't understand. I came out of the television business, and the way, I don't care if it's MS Now on the left or Fox News on the right.
Yep.
These people are paid to do one thing, and that's deliver eyeballs to their advertisers.
Yeah.
And the only way you keep people watching all day long, all the time, just glued to the edge of their seat, is to keep them either angry or fearful.
Yeah.
Those are the two most powerful emotions. If you're talking, that's why you don't see a lot of just sort of good news and these type of things, because as much as we'd all like to see it, it's not what gets people like the boxing match. And so I basically stopped watching a lot of that, because what they'll do is they'll throw one little inflammatory piece of meat out. Everybody else spends the next half hour arguing about this one thing. That all was developed. Reality TV in general and all these talk shows came out of the writers' strike way, way back when in the late 90s in Hollywood. And they found out this is a really cheap way to produce television, because you can eat up a lot of time just by having people beating things up to death. But it doesn't really help the political discourse in this country at all.
Yeah. People watch it.
People watch it.
Consume
People
it.
watch it.
I
But,
know.
I've sat there and watched, had this on in the background all day long, and you look at yourself and say, I learned nothing from this.
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
Yeah.
you have
There
to be
goes
careful.
a couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Sometimes,
Yeah.
it's good to know what's going on out there, but I've
Yep.
basically started watching a lot of BBC
Yeah.
because they actually go through the backstory, and they have a much different approach than what we're seeing right now in the
Yeah.
U.S.
We interviewed Roop Raj with Fox in Detroit
Yeah.
about a week ago, and he's got a show called The Pulse.
Oh, that's
and
great.
it
Yeah.
allows him to have a longer conversation with people.
Yeah, I think we desperately need. That's why I like podcasting. Some of the local broadcasts are more useful. I mean, they're talking about local things, but I love those in-depth
Yeah.
shows. And well, look at it. Sunday morning television isn't necessarily that exciting to watch, but it's you can get some red meat there, and really that you can hang your hat on.
Well, one of the stats we talked about was that national news, the confidence level is, I think it's half or below or
Right.
something like that, but it was really low. I should look it up. We might have to look that up and throw it on the screen. I don't know if it's 30 or 40%. Ryan can throw it on there for us if I got it wrong. But local news was 70% confidence.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the way it is, because they're covering your community. You
Yeah.
know a lot of the people you see there, and you know if it's true or not. That's what I don't get is you can watch. I was watching the other day, and it's gotten to the point where you don't know. I have no frame of reference by which to judge what I'm seeing, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
I watched CNN and Fox, and they were both saying the exact opposite thing from one another.
Yeah.
How does a person back at home make a decision? And then add on to that the fact that so many people are getting their news from sort of untested sources online that basically become echo chambers. And,
Yeah.
it's just amazing to me. I've had people call me with the most bizarre things that they think are happening in government, and I have no idea what they're even talking about. Well, can you believe what it's a lot of partisan stuff, what the Democrats tried to do in Michigan today. I'm like, I was there. I don't remember any of this happening.
Yeah.
It's just wild. So
Yeah. I was having a conversation with some people at a party with some friends, and one of them was saying how when they go to the grocery store, he was angry. And this particular person throws out kind of anger stuff on Facebook, political anger stuff. And I was looking around and talking, like, I go to the grocery store and everybody's so happy. Opening the door, getting a cart for you, saying, excuse me, get out of the way, very kind. I think it's like what our perspective is.
That's true.
Like all I experience is kindness. Seriously.
That's great.
I can't think of like how many like just straight out of nowhere negative experiences I had with a person in the last however many years. It's like kindness all over the place.
Well, that's good to hear.
But I think if you're in there, that's what I guess maybe the lizard brain, you see what you're thinking about.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
And I mean, social media I don't think has helped at all because people will say things shielded by a screen that they'd never say face to face to somebody.
Yep.
And I've had those are some of my favorite favorite interactions with people is when somebody comes after me with both guns a-blazing and I'll call them up and they're so surprised.
Yeah.
Wait, you're actually calling me about this? Yeah. I think you're maybe misinterpreting what I meant by such and such. And we end up with these great conversations and they feel better about life, and so do I. That I don't think this level of discourse that we see so often especially in our political environment right now is healthy at all.
Yeah. So I interviewed Senator Santana a week ago.
Yep.
Yeah, Sylvia Santana, and she's in District 2, and you're in the second to the last district.
Yeah, that's right.
37. Right. And one of the things I'm fascinated by your district, first of all, I'm from the UP. I love the UP. You get to represent part of the UP, so it just I just love it. That's my home. But you represent some of the most affluent area of northern Michigan and a big section of the UP, which is much more rural, but it's a huge landmass. And then you got Senator McBroom. It's got the rest of the UP.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a tremendous landmass and a lot of diversity within that area that you represent.
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of the other districts. And it's all by population. So it just so happens you got it to fit, 110,000 people?
300,000 for the
300,000 for the Senate?
Just a little under 300,000 to fit.
So to hit that number, it's a lot of land.
Oh, yeah. We have people down here who I serve with whose district is 10 minutes from end to end. Mine is 4.5 hours to get to the same people. So, but it's 4.5 hours of the coolest parts of the state. I mean, it's from Traverse City and Leelanau County through where I live in Harbor Springs and Petoskey and Charlevoix. Sheboygan's a great place. Up across the Mackinac Bridges in my district up to Sault Ste. Marie. We have the Sioux Locks. It's just such a neat place. So.
So recently you had flooding issues. I want to ask you about that. I know you were there. And I'm kind of curious, like, did the state do anything to help? Can it do something to help when something like that happens? And is there anything that needs to be done further now that the crisis is gone, is passed?
Sure. I mean, remember, for northern Michigan, the part of my district where I serve, this is 2 years in a row. We've had major natural disasters in March and April timeframe there. Last year, we had the ice storm that we're still recovering for. I mean, if you drove and
all those trees?
Oh my goodness, and it was just, I mean,
devastated forest.
Oh, devastated. I mean, I looked out at mine the other day, and I had worked really hard last year. I can't believe how much more I have to do, and this is going to be a problem. We're starting to get wildfires up there because all this fuel is now on the floors there. But it was a nightmare. We ended up getting FEMA assistance. It's coming in very slowly, but then fast forward this year, we thought that this was going to be ice storm number 2, and we dodged a bullet there. But it all started this year with this huge snowstorm. It was incredible. I mean, I haven't seen this much snow
late in the year.
Oh, late in the year.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had over 30 inches, not drifting, just snowfall in our driveway from that one storm. And some places up in the UP got over 4 feet in a 2-day period.
Yeah.
And so it was, and we had thought, we had gotten warnings, talked to the state police that this could turn into an ice storm, and it would have been another disaster. We all breathed a sigh of relief because that didn't really happen. And, we were locked down for several days. I actually kind of thought it was fun because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't move my car. I have a long driveway, couldn't get it plowed. So I didn't feel guilty for not being out and about. This is, at the end of March there. Well, we didn't realize that was sort of a lingering disaster because it all melted at once on top of a ton of rain that came in and caused this huge flooding.
Yep.
And so we were up there. There's a big dam in Sheboygan that we thought this thing is going to fail. I mean, it was a lot of people.
And is that all part of the Indian River system?
It is. Yep.
Yeah, it's so much water.
It could have been a mess, and
Yeah.
it was.
You didn't see a river anymore off of I-75.
No, it was just all a lake. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
It's still flooded. What
Yeah.
people don't realize is there's still houses underwater right now.
Yeah.
And I drove down early this morning. Was looking at some of the flooding. It looks like it did a month ago, but it's all part of that same watershed. And in Sheboygan, the water got to within 5 inches of cresting the dam. And what I didn't understand, because I'm not an engineer, is that they kept saying if this happens, if it goes over the top, it'll fail. And I didn't understand
As
why.
in, like, the thing will crumble?
Well, that's what I didn't get. It's not that. What ends up happening is the structure itself may stay, but once it's higher than the land around it, the water starts rushing over the land, and it on the sides, it erodes the earth very, very quickly.
Okay.
So then it doesn't even matter what happens with the dam because the river's no longer going through.
The dam is there, but the land is not.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And it's a mess.
Okay.
And that was on the edge. And it was such a complicated series of events that got us there. But it was wild to see, and a bunch of people saved it. But now is the time. You ask what we can do. I mean, now is the real work that needs to be done. Is how do we address dam safety? We've seen what this could look like head on now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that need to be. A lot of the funding that does. We had roadways just wash away, and bridges and culverts and these things. So that funding is going to have to unfold over a period of months and even years, and it's going to have to involve the federal and state governments.
Were you guys able to actually do anything to help? I saw a bunch of pump machines and everything. Like, was there anything that could be done, or was it just watch?
No, it was amazing. It's interesting watching how these things roll out. Now, as a legislator, it was interesting in the ice storm. I learned this is there's not a lot of direct things. I'm not out like repairing the electric. We were without power for 2 weeks. I know nothing about restoring power. There's anything I can do, but it's an important role because we do have a voice. And one of the biggest problems in any emergency like this is communications, and the message last year on what to do just wasn't getting out. And so we took a real proactive stance, and I think it helped the situation a bit. But we did it again this year with the dam. And it's not just going up. I mean, nobody needs to see a politician touring, a dam just as a photo opportunity. But it is important that we know these things. And we were able to work closely with the governor and with the state police who managed the emergency response. And so many people came out of the work that did make it happen. Okay. I'll tell you, that Sheboygan Dam has been a mess for years. And it's owned, even the ownership is somewhat questionable right now. And what it basically is there's a big spillway that's owned by the DNR that's beautiful. Okay. That was great. Then there's locks, which they can the DNR owns that, and they can let water through there.
So you mean above stream there's a spillway?
No, right at the dam was made up of 3 different parts. There's a spillway, then these locks, and then there was a privately owned dam, which had been in such disrepair, and it was controlled by the oversight was provided by the federal government, and these guys have been warned time and time again they needed to fix it. And it was so bad it's housed in this building, and they had a fire there a couple years ago, and after the fire that ravaged half the building, vandals came in and stole all the copper out of it. So what ended up happening was they couldn't turn. It's a hydroelectric dam that they couldn't restart and to pass water through it. And so Consumers Energy, who doesn't even own the dam, came up, and the state police and all the state emergency managers, everybody worked their brains out. They put in those big pumps. And
so meaning like not even enough water could flow through as it normally would have?
Right. It was 30% of the water it could have been handling, and they got it working.
Wow.
But it was, I saw a really good response. I was happy to see that. So the state can do a lot in those areas. So.
Is the spillway, is that for fish to get through?
No, it's just for overflow.
Overflow.
Yeah, it's for overflow. And that was performing as it should, but they've never seen this level of water.
And then the locks, people can take their boat all the way to Lake Huron and then into Lake Michigan, right?
Yeah,
isn't that amazing?
Great, yeah.
I've never been through that system.
Oh, you got to go through.
But
It's
all the way
inland
from
waterways,
all the way from Indian River
back beyond that, all the way
Beyond
from
that.
it goes all the way back. There's Crooked Lake and Pickerel Lake, and there's all Burt Lake, and Mullet Lake, all these things. It's a I think it's a over 50-mile inland waterway chain, all connected by these rivers that are really neat to go down. So
geography, land, topography. I think it's fascinating. I like hiking through the woods. I hike with a topo map and a compass, and I plot out where I'm going to go, how I'm going to get, through a swamp area or a pinch point or over a beaver dam or where I'm going to cross the river or whatever. So as I got more into hiking and topography and my maps and my compasses, I realized how simple water is. It's all flowing into the Great Lakes, or basically it's all flowing into the oceans. But it's kind of that simple. Like in Michigan, it either goes to Michigan or Huron or to Superior, but it's all connected.
Yeah, it is.
In some way, a creek is connected to a bigger creek, which is connected to a river, which is connected to a lake.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it all works.
It is. They say that water always finds a way. I mean, it's going to find the easiest path of least resistance to get where it's going.
Every swamp drains into a creek, and that drains into something. It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
And then when you have a flooding problem, it's amazing how connected it is.
It is.
Then we get to see it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
It's a problem, too, because a lot of people don't realize that their homeowners insurance in most cases doesn't cover flooding. I mean, and people, I suppose, who are living right along a river think about these things.
They have flood insurance,
yeah, they
maybe,
have to get
and
flood
hopefully
insurance.
they do.
Yeah.
If they have to have flood insurance.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Otherwise it wouldn't, would it?
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who their house, and some of these insurance policies, people really need to look into them. They and their neighbors both got flooded. They have a sump pump that broke, so their insurance called it a failure of an equipment failure and covered it. Their neighbors didn't have a sump pump, and they didn't get a dime of coverage. I mean, they're literally in the same neighborhood. It's just wild how these things work. So
yeah. So now that the crisis is over, like you said, now there's more work to do. So what does that look like?
Well, it's a couple. I mean, one, we need to assess the damage, and they're still working on that. A lot of roads. There's what's called the Tunnel of Trees up by us, north of Harbor Springs, is one of the sort of most cherished roads in all of Michigan. It's beautiful, M119. I was just last night drove out there because a big section of that road washed away, and that is a real gem, but that's going to take a long time to fix. I've talked to Michigan Department of Transportation. They said they need to re-engineer that whole thing, and that could take a long time and really have an impact on tourism this year. But there's bridges and culverts and things like that all throughout the area that are going to need a lot of work, and it's very expensive to do that. Yeah. So we're going to be working to see if we can get some relief from the state level and also from the federal level. We have the governor declared a state of emergency right away, which was good. That helped us sort of unlock some resources to address the emergency right away. But we still need to, getting the federal FEMA designations and things like that is a longer period of time.
Okay.
We're still waiting to get a lot of resources, though, from last year's ice storm. So, and that's a real expensive one. That was $305 between two electric co-ops alone that don't even cover our whole area. They had $305 million of damage last year's ice storm. It wiped out the entire grid. So it's a long recovery process.
And then what happens with all the trees? I know they were trying to log some early on and get some salvage out of it, but then eventually nothing, just kind of let the forest do its thing.
Yep, you got to do that. I mean, we're encouraging people to try to clean them up, get them branches chipped, all these type of things, because that's a horrible danger for wildfire season. We have all these now over a year long sitting there, dried out branches and limbs and things like that. But I mean, ultimately the forests recover, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more damage coming in the next few years because so many of these trees. I mean, we lost, even at my house, just tons of full-grown maple trees, and then the ones we didn't lose are ridiculous looking. They've lost half their crown, and so nobody knows how long these trees are going to survive or what's going to happen. So
well, I don't know. It'll look different. Might get a lot of new growth.
I think so.
Get a little bit more sunshine going through.
That's right. That's right.
Forests do evolve and change, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So with the diversity of your area, and like I said, you've got a affluent part of Northern America, you got more, or Northern America, Northern Michigan, you got more rural areas. What does it take to recognize the needs of everybody, and how do you...
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We have a great district. What it takes is getting out there and meeting people and loving people. I mean, I love our constituents. I just find these conversations I have, no matter what a person's background is, fascinating. And that's one of the interesting parts of our job is, I mean, I'll deal with everything from attorneys to inmates, literally. And I just find this thing fascinating. So, but our district is one thing that's really important. We have a lot of tourists in our area. There's no question about that. But I'm constantly reminding myself that I work for the residents there. And that means that when push comes to shove, I default to protecting the people who have elected me. That's the way the system is meant to work, because they get one person in the state Senate to represent them, and that person is me. And so, we have. I love when people come to visit. I'm glad a lot of people have second homes up there. We want it to be a great experience for them. But my current job is to look out for the residents. And sometimes those needs come into conflict with one another. And so, we do have a lot of diversity. That's how you started asking. I look at my own school in Harbor Springs. Our Harbor Springs school has some of the most wealthy kids in the state and some of the poorest kids in the state. And for them, it's almost worse because they see it right there, right in front of them, what they don't have. And we have kids who drive a BMW to school. We have kids who don't have, their wells are broken and they don't have running water at home. It's really amazing trying to balance those needs. So I guess depending on what the issue is, we could talk specific issues, but you try to.
If you have any to give it as an example.
Yeah, I mean, like school funding is a big one, and this is one where we're constantly battling. A lot of people don't understand down here. Just as we don't understand all the challenges downstate, they don't necessarily understand what we have up north. For instance, we have transportation costs are huge for our schools. I was talking to one of our school districts, and their transportation just for busing is 11% of their entire funding that they have to use on transportation. We have kids who ride the bus for over an hour each way. And, you talk about that down here,
Isn't
people
that
look at
amazing?
you like you're crazy. So when
I remember when I came down and we had our boys, Eller and Owen, and they were going to go to Way School, and my wife said, the bus picks them up. She mentioned the bus. It shocked me. What do you mean the bus picks them up? It's like a mile and a half away. When I grew up in Manistee, people came from Germfast. The people that drove the bus drove 45 minutes, half hour, 20 minutes. Nobody took a bus inside a couple of miles or 5 miles. It really blew me away that there's a bus system that exists when you're only a mile away from school.
Isn't that amazing? It's totally. Yeah. Another thing with our schools, we had recently, this year we passed, and it was a good thing, but we had to really work to tweak the law on this, a cell phone ban for class time, in schools, because this is a problem with kids sitting on their cell phones. I'm convinced this is having terrible impacts on education, but what was originally passed in the House, they were pushing for a bill where you couldn't even have your cell phone with you at all on the premises at schools. They just no cell phone. No, and I had my superintendent saying, "John, please don't let that one go through because we have kids on the bus for an hour. We have kids walking by themselves through long distances in snow. They need to have their phones." And I had to call. I actually got in an argument with the guy. He said, I'm not going to support this. Well, you're crazy. You don't think cell phones are a problem? I said, I didn't say that. I do think cell phones are a problem. But you have to realize not every area has the exact same thing. I'll tell you a great example of the inverse. Last year, there was, there's a big crackdown on waste, fraud, and abuse. And everybody has their own definition of what waste, fraud, and abuse is. I mean, basically, what's a project to me may look like waste to you or something, but there was, they were really cracking down on spending last year. Some of that we need to do, but some of it got a little political and over the top. And for whatever reason, for the prior years, there'd been a lot of swimming pools in the Detroit area that Democratic reps had gotten funded. It just was a fact. And when the Republicans took control of the House, they were saying, "That's it, no more swimming pools, and splash pads." If I heard it once, I heard it 100 times. No swimming pools, no splash pads. We're done funding that stuff. Well, last year I had a free day in Detroit, and I called a friend of mine who Sylvia's husband, Sylvia Santana's husband, who was Harvey Santana, used to serve in the state legislature. And I said, "Harvey, what should I see? I got a whole day in Detroit." And he said, "I'm going to do better than that. You're going to spend the whole day with me. I'm going to show you things." And Harvey took me to a swimming pool. And he said, "What do you see there?" I said, well, swimming pool. And he says, no, but I mean, look at all the kids there. I'm like, yeah, they look like they're having a great time. And he said, you do notice they're being supervised by adults. I said, yeah, that's really great, Harvey. And he said, look at the entrance over here and the entrance over here. You see they're both police cars at both entrances. Yeah, I do. He said, do you realize before the swimming pool was here, these kids had nothing to do all day long, summer day long. They would run around unsupervised in the neighborhoods. And that you have no idea how many problems that caused. Well, it hit me like a ton of lead bricks because I live on the shores of Lake Michigan.
There's no lake in the middle of Detroit.
There's no lake in the middle. And so who am I to judge whether they need a swimming pool or not? You know, it was just really telling to me that you got to sort of walk in each other's shoes a little bit.
Yeah. Everything I hear about Harvey, I've said hi to him, but I have never spent any conversation with him. But I know his wife better. But he just seems like and Sylvia, people with really good intent.
Yeah, I think they are good, salt of the earth people. Harvey doesn't stop at a single stop sign, though. I'm riding it, and I'm like, Harvey, you're going to get pulled over. And then sure enough, he got pulled over.
Yeah.
But they're just great, salt of the earth people, common sense. I really think the world of both of them. So
yeah. So the back to your district and working with the needs of different people. When you say sometimes it's at odds, how do you find a balance for your own constituents?
Yeah.
Like, what do you look for?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I guess I can answer it this way: that I've discovered a lot. I came out of the business world, and I can't believe this is how our government actually works.
Okay.
And the point is, I've discovered a lot of things that have shocked me, many to the bad, but some to the good. And one of them would be if before I got into office, if you would have asked me, and I had even the sort of frame of reference to describe it, I would have said this, oh yeah, sure, you're a representative of the people. I would have thought it was just like this quaint, old-fashioned notion that you're a representative of the people. What I've learned is that actually is a real thing.
Okay.
And it's real not because we're all, not for any other reason other than it has to be. Because I came in thinking I'd be really good at this job. I paid attention. I'd worked around politics and with different sort of government or near government organizations throughout my career. But when I got here, I quickly realized that I knew about 5 or 6 topics, top to bottom, that I didn't need help on, that I am an expert in. And 95% of what we're legislating on, I literally knew enough to be dangerous on. Okay. I mean, I knew tax policy for businesses because I ran a small business for 25 years. I knew a lot about health insurance because I was the one who chose our health insurance plans. I knew these type of things. But I knew nothing about pharmaceuticals, and I would be voting on those. And I knew nothing about road building. I'd never been exposed to it. And that's not just me, it's anybody. So what it does is it forces you to listen to people who you can trust. And I've now looked at our role as one, becoming very discerning as to who those people are that you can trust. And 2, the biggest part of our job is putting ourselves in a position whereby when these people come to you with issues, you have the relationships in place and you're respected enough to be able to get these things done for the people you represent. Okay. And that's what the job really is. That is truly, in its purest sense, being a representative.
When you say be respected enough, like what types of qualities or traits do you see where people have done a good job of that or not a good job of that?
Well, we're living in a terrible political climate right now where people are treating one another just awfully. And this is, I don't care what level you're talking about. I see it at the state level. We see it every night on the news at the federal level. We see it at the local level, too. I mean, our cities and towns are just ripped apart over this most minor issues. Everybody's mad these days. I mean, not in the sense that you were talking about going to the grocery store, but the bottom line is
mad about an issue that
they're mad about it and
wrong done.
And somehow we've gotten this in our mind that the best thing to do is to just fight over everything. Yeah. And I ask myself, when did we lose this idea that it's actually our job to become persuasive? And to become persuasive, you have to build relationships. And it was funny because when I first started down here, I went to a Republican meeting. I'm a lifelong Republican, went to a local Republican meeting, and somebody actually said to me, John, we heard you're down there trying to make friends with Democrats. We didn't send you there to do that. We sent you there to fight. Okay. And I said, listen, I'm a man of faith. And as a man of faith, I believe it's in Scripture Scripture that we're to treat others as we would like to be treated.
Yep.
But if that doesn't move you, then recognize I'm also in the minority. So if I would like to have any bills moved the whole time I'm down here, I better make some friends who are Democrats. And you know, some of them would have loved it if I would have just started calling Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, names. You know, they'd come home, way to go, John. All I've done is ensured she's not going to help me ever. And we've built a really nice relationship. And yes, the fact of the matter is we think differently about things. So what? You know, that people think differently. And I disagree with her on a lot of issues, but we built a nice relationship. And that's what if you would have asked me again before coming into office versus what I've seen, another one I was wrong on is I guess I thought people fought it out during campaigns, and then everybody got elected and they're like, all right, we can stop that stuff. Let's roll up our sleeves. What's good for the state? And
what we had to do.
Yeah.
Here's how the dust settled. Now let's go.
And what I'm finding is to the contrary. There's people who, I mean, there is a core group of people who are here for all the right reasons, but there's a whole lot of people who are just having fun with the fight, and that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. How do you balance it? Because there's two parties basically, and there could be an independent here or there, but basically there's two predominant parties, and each party does want to be in power.
Right.
Because when you're in power, you can get things done in your House or in your Senate or in the governor's office. And when you're not in power, your bills are secondary or maybe not seen at all if you don't have any power in either area. So how do you balance that out where ultimately the Republican or the Democrat party is trying to be in power, but at the same time, most of the time, you've got to work with people on things?
You know, I think we need to change our entire political culture. And we've always had a lot of divisions in this country. Sure, we had a division one time that was so bad we went to war with ourselves in the Civil War.
Yeah.
But we've lost, there is a sort of dying sense of grace and civility that we need to get back. I mean, like I said, I've been a lifelong Republican. I became a Republican because of Ronald Reagan. And I grew up, I was 8 years old when he came in, 16 when he left office, and he was just larger than life. And I remember when he died, in fact, I respected him so much, I decided when he left office, I wanted to name a child after him one day. And our 28-year-old daughter is Reagan, after Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
But when he died, I remember such an interesting interview with Pat Schroeder, who was a very, very liberal congresswoman from Colorado. She was being interviewed, and she said, you know, it just was impossible to hate the man. You'd go in there and he'd greet you with a smile, and he'd ask about your family, and you build, and that's something that's lost. I mean,
and he gave a lot of jabs to the other side.
He gave a lot of jabs, but he did it. There was a limit to it. It wasn't I want to kill you. It's I disagree with you. There's a big difference. I was joking with Mallory McMorrow, who is running for U.S. Senate down here. She and I have worked together on a number of bill packages. Again, we're probably on different planets on a bunch of issues, no question about it. But I told her the other day, I said, Mallory, I can't wait till we can get back to the time when I call you a tax and spend liberal and you say I'm in bed with corporate America, and then we fight that out, and then we work together on a bunch of other things, you know, because those are not existential crises to be on the opposite side of that, you know. But what we have right now is if you're not on my side, for too many people, you are evil. You are out here trying to ruin society. And I mean, I just haven't seen that. I've met a lot.
Is that the rhetoric to try to, back to the one party is trying to not have the other party be in control?
And both parties are doing this, and they're stoking this anger and hatred out there because they reap rewards from it, but it's not right. There's one Democratic senator down here who's probably one of my favorites down here, and I say it all the time. I think she's wrong all the time, but she's wrong for all the right reasons because she genuinely cares about people. I can work with that, you know, and we have come together on a number of issues where I've explained how what she's proposing would affect up north, and she's showed me some things downstate that I didn't realize. This is how it's supposed to be. That's statesmanship, and I think nothing is going to change until people demand that their representatives and senators and people who they've been elected to serve them actually start behaving well again. Because otherwise there's too many incentives to act like a maniac.
This is my little clipboard's getting thick because I don't always thin it out after I have different interviews. But this was some information I was looking at from an interview from last week. But since you're talking about it's relevant, these are threats to Congress.
Isn't that amazing?
It's incredible. How much it's accelerated.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at the rhetoric on both sides. Yeah, everybody's guilty. Both sides are guilty on this. No question about it.
Yeah.
When you're out there saying things, and again, I'm a Republican. I voted for Donald Trump, but some of the things he says, if my 11-year-old said the same thing, he'd be grounded.
Yeah.
You know, and some of these, you don't just call people a disgraceful human being, and the left does that as well. And the point is, it's not healthy. It doesn't help resolve any conflicts, and it inspires really bad behavior out there.
Yeah. Do you know how you get to the other side of it?
I think it has to come from people who've had about enough of this stuff, and by politicians who are willing to stand up and say, no, I'm going to do this differently. I'm not giving in to these temptations. I'm going to try to work with honor with other people. Yeah. I had to explain this to somebody one day. They questioned my toughness on something, and I told them, I said, do you know how easy it would be to just spout off my I get mad, and I'd love to shoot my mouth off and swear at somebody. And all I will have done is ruin that relationship. It is much, much more difficult. It takes a lot more strength to control your tongue and to be respectful of people, even when you don't feel like it. I'd love to indulge my basest instincts sometime. But the point is, we've got to start, as leaders, we have to start modeling that no, we don't have to, there's not only one way of governing, that there is a responsible way of governing, and we can have sincere policy differences. Notice, I'm not talking about caving on any policy. I have very, very strong views on a lot of very controversial issues, but it's a matter of, I will not treat these people like we see other people being treated, and it's a matter of people back home to quit having fun watching this boxing match and start to realize that it's causing real problems in society.
Do you know, like on so the citizen has a huge responsibility to vote. It's been said forever.
Yeah.
Get out there and vote.
Yeah.
But do you know the numbers? Not a lot of people vote. Bottom line.
It fluctuates up and down.
And then the primary vote gets half of the general election or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the percentage is on what of the population votes for president. But it's not a lot.
Yeah.
There's and then who does vote maybe is really inspired or hot idea. Maybe not hot in a bad way, but they're hot about an idea.
Yeah.
And they can be pulled by that language sometimes,
That's right.
that rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who are, a lot of times the reason people don't vote, there's two reasons. Is one, there's a bunch of people who believe that, well, what's the point? This system's rigged. My vote isn't going to count anyways. A real defeatist point. There's another part which isn't that I would take real issue with. The people, we've seen close elections, but even more than that, it really is your civic duty to do this. And if you can't get out and vote, then don't complain about anything you see. That's just the way our system works. But then there's another side where people don't follow follow politics with bated breath 24 hours a day.
You said it before. We're not that exciting.
No, which is a good thing. That's
right.
actually to be rewarded. That if government was really working, we would sort of be seen and not heard.
Yep.
Because people would be too busy doing the things that actually matter in this world, running their businesses, being with their families, doing all these type of things.
Yep.
And the point of the matter is, I don't think that's bad, but if people want to get to that type of government, those people who are somewhat dispassionate need to become really passionate.
Yeah.
Or else you're literally leaving it to the people who are on the extremes. Yeah. And that's what our primary system is all about right now. I see this all the time. Someone like me would have huge support amongst Republicans, but unfortunately I don't have a primary challenger right now. But if I did, I would be in a dogfight because only the most extreme people would be all fired up to come vote. They're waiting till the day is here that they get to vote me out.
Yeah.
And all these other people who are off running businesses and running their families aren't paying that close of attention. So we're going to keep getting more and more and more of what we're getting right now until those people stand up and really get involved.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
What about, you mentioned waste in fraud and abuse. Yeah. So we're seeing headlines of it being found all over the country. Is there has there been much discovered in Michigan as of late with
Yeah, I mean, not as much as some. I mean, I don't know. The fact is, there have been some very high-profile cases, to be sure. I've also seen a lot of things that some people might think are waste or fraud. I actually think are kind of important, but so I wouldn't put it in that. But you know, all it takes is a couple people to ruin it for everybody, and we're seeing that right now with the MEDC. There was this $20 million grant given to Faye Baydoun, who is now, you know, has been charged with, I think, 16 felonies. She was using this money for a $4,500 coffee maker and expensive trips around the world and, you know, Turkish carpets and all these crazy things. And the problem is it's really given a stain to the entire MEDC, which is actually out there trying to encourage business development in Michigan. But this actually, I think this could put their future in jeopardy over one person's bad behavior. Now I have to be cautious.
Which would be horrible. I think the MEDC should have more behind it.
I agree.
Not less. And I think, I don't know if it even has as much emphasis behind it today as it did 10 years ago.
It doesn't, no.
With the Pure Michigan campaigns and everything. But
100%.
I hope it doesn't get less. But sorry, go ahead.
No, but you're exactly right. Yeah. But this puts the whole system, because what it does is allows people to say, see, look at what they're doing. It's just a way to reward political buddies, or it's wasted money and things. And it's not. And the MEDC, I'm particularly supportive of is, and you would know this as a business person too, that we were headquartered in Michigan, but most of my business was, clients were out of state. They were in Washington, D.C. We had some in Florida. We would go out west for different things. They all wondered, what are you doing in Michigan? Like, people do not realize what a great state this is. So they just think of it as sort of a dying Rust Belt state. And in no small part, we've caused that over the years. We have had poor government, and we've had a lot of anti-business policies that have driven people out of state. And the fact is, it's going to take some money to bring those businesses back. So unless we want to just become truly a flyover state, or like go back to an agrarian society, it's going to take some investment, especially when every other state is doing it. I saw this. I supported a project that Ford Motor Company was doing a few years ago, and it was in the battery space. They were making, it was batteries for electric vehicles. I love internal combustion engines. I'm not just an overwhelming battery EV guy, but if they're going to be part of the fleet, so to speak, which they are going to be part of the fleet, I want to make sure Michigan has a hand in that. But more importantly, I voted for it. I've told people this, and I say it in jest. I don't need a bunch of people calling me and saying you would support fairy dust, but I've said this, that they could have been making fairy dust there, and I would have supported that plant. And the reason is because I got so tired of watching Ford Motor Company and all of our great automotive companies leave the state as fast as they can for places like Kentucky and Tennessee and South Carolina. And the only reason Kentucky, Tennessee, and South Carolina even have an automobile industry is because they were a right-to-work state when we were not. They had a favorable corporate tax structure. We did not. They welcomed the businesses. We did not. And so I actually talked to one person after an investment we made. I won't mention who it is, but they said, one of our greatest companies, they said, John, do you realize that if we didn't do this project, we'll never build anything in the state of Michigan again? And I said, why? This is a huge company. I said, because we never know what we're going to get from you. One minute you love us, the next minute you hate us, one minute you're passing regulations that help us, the next minute you're cracking down. We go into other states and they roll out the red carpet. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats, they're glad we're here. They appreciate the jobs we bring, and they stick with us long term. And that's what we've got to get back to. That's what MEDC is meant to help with. So.
Okay. So beyond MEDC, are there other, there's no other, probably not no, but is there other state organizations that are also doing that? Or locally, like Invest UP would be locally, well, it's the whole UP, but they're out of Marquette. So there's some local effort.
Yeah, and there's a lot of associations that are working on this. And
Chamber of Commerce and things like that.
Absolutely. And Michigan Manufacturers Association, which I just love because I'm so proud of it. And I'm not bragging. It's just this is one I'm really proud of because I've worked for a lot of years trying to rekindle interest in American manufacturing since even long before I was even in office. And I just got their Legislator of the Year for the fourth straight year. So I got to plug them.
All right, good.
But these organizations, and what they're doing is it's not just an economic development organization. I mean, we have all of those, but also they're advocating for policies that can help. I mean, one big one last year we were looking at transformational brownfields, which could be that's been used to great success. We're trying to expand the program. It could be really great for Detroit. There's a big program they're trying to do on the waterfront there that could be absolutely transformational for that city, even beyond what's already happened there. And so there are, tax credits, brownfield tax credits.
What's a brownfield tax credit?
It's a tax credit that you get as a business owner for cleaning up taking over a contaminated site, cleaning it up and turning it into something useful. And so those type of things. We're looking for housing, different things you can do to encourage housing. And I'm not a big government handout guy at all. But I do think there's a role for government, especially when government has caused a lot of the problems of the past. So
yeah, okay. Invest UP, do you work with them much?
I've worked with them on a few projects. They're doing good stuff up in the UP. I know Marty and those guys pretty well.
So the interesting thing about the UP is Marquette is, I've never heard anybody say this before, but it's kind of in my head. It's like the Lansing of the UP in a way. It's such a central hub of the Upper Peninsula, and the Upper Peninsula has organizations that looks out for the Upper Peninsula. So sometimes if you represent part of the UP, you've got to find your way probably over to Marquette.
Oh yeah, I do that a lot. One, it doesn't take much convincing to get me to Marquette. It's such a cool city. My wife, we discovered this years and years ago, and we would take our family up at least once a summer for a weekend just to spend time. I could sit and watch them load those ore boats out by Presque Isle all day long. And then the city's cool, good restaurants. So we love Marquette. But you're right. I mean, the UP is a different animal, and I represent Sault Ste. Marie. All of Chippewa County and Mackinac County. Mackinac Island's a little different animal, but that's in my district. And we sort of have to hang together on some things. And so we do a lot of conferences all over the UP and get to know people for sure. So, it's one of my favorite parts of the district. It was, I'll tell you a story. It was funny because when I first ran for office, I didn't have any campaign staff. I hadn't come up for this in 2020. Our business was shut down because of COVID, and I had just been called non-essential by my government, which just really hit me for some reason. I worked so hard for this, and I'm non-essential. And all of our clients bailed on us because they were forced to be closed, so they didn't need to do any advertising. And I had 4 kids at home studying from our house. And I thought, well, I'm essential to them. And so that's what kind of made me think, you know what, I can't believe the government can just do this, just shut us down. And that's what made me jump into it. But I had a 7-way primary, okay? And there was one guy on Facebook who just was relentless against me. And at one point he said something that was so off the wall. He said, this was like a Saturday morning, I saw this comment, and he said, "I heard you just moved up here just to run for office." I'm like, well, whoever told you that's crazy. I mean, I thought if somebody's going to lie about me, at least say something that's not immediately disprovable, like by showing my kids' graduation pictures from Harbor Springs High School, all this stuff. But so I corrected him, and then later in the day, he said the same thing on another post. And so I thought it was maybe somebody who was having some mental challenges or something like that. It was getting older or something like that. Well, I finally found out who it was, and it was a party activist up in Chippewa County in Sault Ste. Marie. And after I had won the primary, I went in to his business to meet him. And I said, "Hi, I'm John Damoose." And he said, it was really interesting. He said to me, "I hope you're not going to hold that primary stuff against me." I said, "No, I'm not, but I just don't even really understand it. I mean, we don't know each other at all." He said, "Here's the thing, is we're so tired of electing people in this district from below the bridge, and then we never see them again until it's next election time." And so he wanted a Uper to represent it. And I told him, I said, "Not only will I not hold this against you, I understand that completely, and I want you to help me not make that same mistake." And so I was really proud in my last election that the UP was my strongest part of the whole district voting for me, because we way overcorrected. I mean, because people shouldn't feel like they don't have representation. And it's such a cool part of the district. There's just nice people up there. It's a neat part of the world. It really is.
I think it's really neat that you have both the UP and the lower. Because I think there is a different perspective in the lower than there is in the UP. And I think it's very important. It's important to have somebody that understands both perspectives and works with the people in both locations.
Yeah, I think it's good to have one of
Yeah.
those sisters for sure. And we're not that different. When you're at the tip of the mitt, so to
Yeah.
speak, it's 5 miles across.
Yeah.
I'm a lot closer to that than I am to Grand Rapids. And
Yeah.
but there are some unique parts of it, no question about it, and they deserve to have a voice. So
Yeah.
I've tried my best to really represent that area well. So
I think sometimes wolves haven't been talked about a lot lately because it's federally protected, and it's until that changes, then there'll be a lot of talk about them again. But I think that's an area sometimes where symbolically something can mean something different to a group of people and something different to people that live with them.
yeah, for
A
sure.
wolf is something that I love them. I think they're very cool.
Yeah.
I've never had one kill my dog.
Yeah.
Or my livestock, or I've had unique experiences with them, and I think it's fascinating. One time I was hiking through the woods and I heard these little puppies like barking, and I sneaked through a little bit, and it's like 6 wolves, puppy wolves playing, and they were only like 3 months old, and they're playing and they're having a great time on a log and running around just like puppies would, and I watched them for a little bit. I took a little video. And then I backed out. The adult there was probably at least one adult in the area, but they didn't see me or I didn't see it. I think I would have seen it if it saw me, but I backed out. And I was probably the first human they ever saw.
Yes.
So they're kind of fascinated with me. They didn't know what to think of me. Kind of looked at me, ran around a little bit. So I've only had unique experiences with them that have been enjoyable, but other people haven't.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I have that big lithograph of wolves there, and it's
Yeah.
there because when I was younger, I did an expedition for a month in Alaska when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and I'll never forget seeing a lone wolf. And
Yeah.
we had seen grizzly bears who, there's nothing you can do to stop a grizzly bear. I mean, we couldn't outrun it. We couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, the only defense we had was yelling loudly in a deep voice, and the grizzly bear got scared and ran away. And we saw caribou. We saw every animal we saw was scared to death of us. This wolf caught our scent, looked
Yeah.
around, and he lied down. He didn't
Yeah.
care. And I just thought, what a cool thing.
I know.
But again, you're right. I've worried about having that hanging here because there are people from the UP who are not going to find this
Yeah.
over. One of them is a sheep farmer who I went up there, and he's lost
Yeah.
all these sheep
Yeah.
to wolves, and to wolves that sadly the DNR says aren't actually there, and he has the proof there.
Yeah.
Then where are my sheep?
Yeah.
So it's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, someday I hope they're not federally protected. I mean, clearly the argument was that, they don't roam the entire United States like they used to.
Right.
And so they're endangered in the United States.
Yeah.
But they're not endangered in the UP.
No, they're not.
And
no.
it'd be nice if they could lose the federal protection, they could be state.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
So
I think the frustration is that, like, let's say one was attacking my dog. It would be against the law for me to hit that wolf.
right.
Because it's federally protected. If it was attacking me, I could protect myself or another human.
Yeah.
If it was attacking Eller, I could,
Yeah.
I could help Eller out. But I can't help my livestock or my dog.
Yeah, some of those things are.
Yeah.
You got to think about it.
Yep.
That'd be hard to resist trying
Yeah.
to defend your.
Yeah. Well, I've had DNR people tell me that they don't think they'd resist it either.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not logical.
Yeah, no, that's right.
But a wolf is something that one person can admire. Like, I admire wolves. I have friends that have lost their dogs to wolves.
Yeah.
And I 1,000% can understand, appreciate, and empathize where they're at.
Well, even up in the UP too. Because wolves are are sacred for the tribes. They,
Yeah.
and so there's some conflict there. They need to sort of work out up in the UP what they want to do on this stuff too. So
Yeah. That's a unique animal for sure.
yeah, for sure.
So on the work with the manufacturing, you got the award again.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Are they directly involved with education? Because I'm somewhat fascinated with this too. We're losing the stigma that not everybody has to go to college.
Yeah.
There's other jobs that are fantastic.
Yep.
You could do trade school. You could do, I don't know, apprenticeships.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can go to college. You can go to community college. There's a lot of pathways right now. So I'm kind of fascinated by this topic.
Yeah.
So what are you finding in this the manufacturing industry, are they getting more involved in opening these pathways up for people? What's happening there?
Absolutely. They are desperate for qualified workers. And so they've been very supportive and pushing for all kinds of initiatives related to career and technical education. And these were things, it's amazing. You're exactly right. Because I remember that when I grew up in the early 90s, I didn't decide not to go into one of these fields. It was never even on my radar. It was just not a thing. Most people, if you were a good student, you would go to college. And I think people, because of the cost, because of some of the outcomes, people are wondering, wait, was this degree actually worth this? They're starting to question these things. And that was an organization, when I said I've been involved with manufacturing for quite some time, in around 2009, 2010, I co-founded an organization with a man named Dave Cole, who was the head of the Center for Automotive Research. It was his idea, and I became the director of it, called Building America's Tomorrow. And it was all dedicated towards rekindling interest in manufacturing careers.
Okay.
And it also had spillover into all the trades there. But he was predicting even back then that by 2020, America would be down.
When was this happening?
In 2009, 2010 timeframe. That by 2020, his prediction was we'd be 2 million workers short in the manufacturing trades. And we're way more than that short.
Wow.
And the point of the matter is, we were trying to change the perception that kids had of manufacturing jobs, that these were no longer what we called the 4Ds, these dirty, dark, dangerous, dead-end jobs. That advanced manufacturing is amazing. You need a 2-year degree often for these things. They're working with robotics and electronics and the factories. I was just down on Saturday. I took my son for a detailed tour of a really in-depth tour of the Rouge plant, the Ford Rouge plant, where they're making F-150s. I mean, that you can't believe this is an automobile manufacturing plant. It's so clean.
Yeah.
And there was no smoke. None of the things you see in the olden days are true anymore. And
we did a tour. Was it you or Owen we went with? Do you remember going to the Rouge plant?
I kind of remember.
Yeah, I
so
couldn't
cool.
believe it.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
So you've seen it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And
It's not at all what I had in my head.
No, not at all. In all these fields, there's a guy up north who his name's Tom Moran. He runs Moran Ironworks, which is just a great Michigan company. And he has started this industrial arts academy for welders, kids who graduate school and go and become welders. They can leave after this training and be earning close to 6 figures right away. And other kids who go pay $100,000 a year to get an English degree come out working at Starbucks. I mean, we have got to start asking ourselves these questions of what do we value in society. And I think people are starting to wake up to that. I really do.
What about the high school graduation requirements? Are you familiar with, do they allow enough flexibility for people to get the trades and get the other skill sets?
It's an ongoing battle.
It's kind of tight, it seems.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, there's a lot of places where they do great dual enrollment programs with the community colleges and there's a lot of districts. A couple of ours up north are doing incredible things with career education, and they've developed all kinds of programs. But there's also some things we need to do. I have a bill to eliminate the foreign language requirement as a condition of graduation, because that would open up some time in people's schedules. I mean, I actually came up with, or was brought to me from some of our small school districts who have to pay a fortune to even carry these classes that none of the kids want to take, and so they're missing out on other things. And these school districts it really becomes onerous for them to try and maintain a foreign language program. They're going to, even if we pass this, they'll do it, but more as an elective. But to make everybody go through this of 2 years of foreign language here is not necessarily. There's other things that are just as important.
Yeah, every class is important.
Yep.
And getting rid of one is going to be tough. But if at some point people are too pinched to where they're only going down this college-ready path, then how do we expand?
Absolutely. Yeah. And our community colleges are great. They're offering some of these 2-year degrees where you just end up with great careers. And so, and some people need to go to college. If you're called to go to college and that's the line of work you're going to work in, you need to do that. But we need to stop, and I think we stop looking down at the other people who are doing just as important things with their hands or in a different line of work, who don't necessarily, it's not that they weren't good students, it's they're good students in a different era. And so we need to be respectful of that.
And in my field of work with financial planning, you get rich, or you have a big investment portfolio. out of three ways: how much investment you buy, basically how much you invest, what your rate of return is, and how long of time that has to develop. And if you're getting out of high school and you're 18, 19 years old and you start working, at 19 after you do an apprenticeship or a trade school or something like that, versus if you're going to college and you get out at 22, 23, and then you get your job or whatever, that 4 years or 3 years or 5 years of putting money in your 401k is tremendous on what that becomes when you're 60 years old.
Yeah.
Not even close. It's tremendous what it becomes.
I remember that, and I was advised so many times when I was young about compounding interest, and but when you're young, it's so hard to think like that. And I wish now in my mid-50s, if only I had listened. This was good advice, and I knew it was good advice, but I didn't listen back then. So
no, it's amazing. And so taking a different path, it has become a stigma. It became a stigma, and I think we're losing that. I'm glad.
I think so. Yeah,
I'm thrilled to see it.
So. Yep.
I did a really interesting study on Biden's 2022 national security strategy and Trump's 2025 national security strategy, and I went through and I looked for all the similarities, what they see as objectives and concerns, and I also put a quiz together at the end. Who said it, Trump or Biden? And you go through and you take this quiz. So far, everybody that takes it, nobody gets even half right.
Isn't that amazing?
They don't know if Trump said it or Biden said it. And the point of it is if the objectives are known and uniform across not only two contrasting presidents like Biden and Trump, but across Republican and Democrats. But one of the big things in there is that we have to reshore manufacturing in our country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in both documents, a tremendous amount of emphasis put on the supply chain weaknesses that we saw front and center with COVID, and then the war with Russia in Ukraine, and the fossil fuel and dependency on energy, and where green energy comes from. All of these things became abundantly clear through these two major events of COVID and the war in Ukraine. But bringing manufacturing back was huge in both documents. So whether it's a tariff or anything else, what that tells me is there's going to be pressure to bring manufacturing and reshore supply chains either administration, Democratic or Republican, for a long time coming.
I think you're right. And you bring up the perfect example of the supply chain challenges we had out of COVID. I mean, imagine that the chip shortage brought the automobile industry to its knees.
Yeah.
And that was unintentional. It was like this weird product.
To its knees.
Imagine, though, that
cars stacked up in parking lots and whatever, missing one thing, a chip.
But that was unintentional. Now imagine China, who is a stated adversary of the United States. That's their words, not ours. And Taiwan account for a huge portion, 90%. 90%. And imagine they decide to do this. And now, versus look at what we had in World War II, where Ford Motor Company turned on a dime to build Jeeps and airplanes and all these things that literally won World War II and turned us into the arsenal of democracy. If we had to do that today, I don't believe we could do that. And I think people are starting to wake up to that for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they are waking up. So I'm glad to see the educational effort going on. Are you seeing, how's Michigan doing at attracting some of this new business? I mean, and how do we go about doing that?
That's where we need to work on our tools a little bit. I mean, the point, like we were talking about MBDC and some of the tools that are available, the point is we have, the fields are ripe, so to speak. I mean, Michigan is the centerpiece of American manufacturing, and we always have been, and we still have such strong manufacturing companies right here. But we've got to be competitive with other states, and that's in terms of our tax policy, in terms of the incentives we offer. We have to do everything because they're working overtime to get what was ours, really. I mean, ours. And it was interesting because, people talk about diversification of our economy. And I've been hearing about this for decades where people are saying it, and what they basically mean is we need to get away from automobiles into other things. And I've always argued that you don't get diversification. You don't ever turn your back on the main thing to get somewhere else. I mean, why every other state in the union would kill to have our automotive base here, and from that comes all kinds of ancillary industries. And it's amazing to me. I wanted to do a documentary, and we ended up doing 3 on just for Ford Motor Company during their turnaround years with Alan Mulally when he was there in 2010, 11, and 12. But my original goal was to tell the story of the American American automobile industry as sort of the quintessential American industry, and to talk about how many of the things we know in this modern era that came from the auto industry. I mean, you can talk about Disney animation came from computer-aided design, which came from automobile companies.
Yep.
We went to the moon because Ford Motor Company built mission control, and all the technology that came out of the automobile industry went there. You name it. The industries that are out there that are sort of defining our modern era all have some ties to the automobile industry because it's such a complicated industry. It's mechanical, it's electronic, it's high tech, it's low tech, it's everything. I mean, the way we have weekends because of the automobile industry and because of the unions. We have the middle class because Henry Ford did the $5 a day.
Yeah.
And all these things are a great legacy, and we should be able to get back to it, but we need to prioritize it. And one of the things that I was working on, I'm proud of working on. I said I worked with Senator Mallory McMorrow on a bill package, and what that package is it's a plan to get to a 10-year economic development plan. It's not the 10-year economic development plan. It's a framework so that people who actually know this stuff can come together and set the stage for where Michigan is going. Because I argue that we used to know exactly who we were as a state. We made great things, and we played outside all year round. And pretty much everything in our state fit within one of those two categories, all the tourism or all the manufacturing. Now you ask somebody that, and it's a million different things. And we both sit on, I'm sure we have a totally different view of what that economy would look like, or what programs we should be investing in. But we both sit on the appropriations committee, and both of us got tired of one project, one off after another. Oh, wait, now we're building a tissue plant. Now you want money for this farming thing. Now you want money for this, this chip manufacturer. None of it made sense. None of it fit together. And it's just a series of one-offs as opposed to here we're laying the course for what we're going to do, and we're going to stick to this course to the extent you can. It's not going to be set in stone legally, but at least we know sort of where we're going as a state. And you see other examples of that. I used the example of the film incentives because that was my business, and. In 2008 is, I think, where they came out, 2007, 2008, they came out with the film incentives in Michigan, and there was no political will behind these things at all. I mean, people were complaining about it the minute it came out. So it bred this mentality of get in, get your money, and get out in Michigan. And sure enough, a few years later, they were canceled. We spent a ton of money, and we still have no movie industry to speak of because there was no long-term will. Georgia had started incentives, but when they saw what Michigan was doing, they matched Michigan's incentives, but they stuck with it. And today, Georgia is one of the premier places on earth. As good as Hollywood or Vancouver, Canada, and Georgia are sort of the three biggest places to make any television or film. And I'm not suggesting that is the industry for us. I don't actually think that is. But the fact that they stuck to it, and now it's so strong down there that my best friend growing up is a producer in Hollywood, and he had a show which ran for a year last year called the Grosse Pointe Garden Society. Was his show. Okay. It's about set in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. It's filmed in Georgia, and I talked to him, and because of the incentives. I talked to him. I said, "You mean you're not filming in Grosse Pointe?" He said, "No. We found an area outside of Atlanta that looks just like Grosse Pointe." It's like, this is what's happened. And that's the power of long range planning. And not to get to like a centrally planned economy, but at least to get people on the same page, knowing generally what direction we're moving.
But there is a big point in there, and that our backbone, our foundation is the auto industry, and let's not lose that.
Right. That's for sure.
It's a lot to recover from.
Oh, yeah. My daughter went to school out in San Francisco area, and I'd drive out there, and you'd see a Ford building going up and a GM building. It's like, no, these are our guys.
And when you lose it, like you get a town like Flint, or you pick a town, Pontiac, pick a town, when you lose it, these towns don't recover sometimes.
No, they don't. And the inverse is also true, is that every time they build a factory in Kentucky, it makes it more likely they're going to build another factory there, because they all tend to grow up around each other and things. So it's real important that we set this as an agenda. When I voted for that Ford project, I remember You couldn't believe how controversial this was, especially amongst my own party. The amount of pushback I got for having voted on it. And I walked through, it was a late night vote. I walked through the Capitol. My dad came out of the auto industry. Back in the, he was at Ford and then went to Chrysler when Lee Iacocca went over there in the 80s. And back in the 1970s and 80s, when this industry was fighting for its survival, there wouldn't have been a single legislator from either party who wasn't all in for the automobile industry. They all, at least, they can fight about whatever they want, but they all knew we're standing up for the auto industry. And today, some of these people don't even necessarily want this here anymore.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd know much about Netflix, like the history of Netflix. You might know a little bit from your background, but like they had originally thought they would get bought by Blockbuster. That was their entire game plan.
It's amazing.
Was they're going to build a competitor to Blockbuster, get bought by Blockbuster, and show them how to do both in store and delivery. And then I think their offer was like $50 million, and Blockbuster laughed them out of the meeting. And they left that meeting realizing, well, that's not going to happen.
Wow.
We had one gig, that's what it was, and it's not going to happen. So then they had to get serious about competing with Blockbuster,
Right.
which they did. And as we all know, Blockbuster went under from it.
It's amazing.
But if you follow all of Netflix, which I think is fascinating about it, goes to what you said, don't get rid of your backbone. Netflix has evolved a lot over the years, but they never evolved outside of what their core was.
Right, right.
So they did DVDs for a long time.
Yeah.
And then at one point they recognized they were in the warehouse and they got all these DVDs all over the place. And they thought, well, why aren't these DVDs in people's homes? Why we're making them mail them back within 10 days? Now, I can keep them for as long as you want. Let the home store the DVDs. We don't need them in this warehouse. And then they wanted to go to streaming, but they couldn't go to streaming until the bandwidth and all the
Right.
pricing and all became fast enough and cheap enough. And so they kept doing the DVDs until they could go to streaming. But they still do DVDs for some of the parts of the
do they
country
really?
that don't have good internet service. But it's an amazing, obviously very successful company. But they've evolved so many times. Now doing sports,
Yeah.
But they never evolved out of
Their core.
too early, and they never evolved out of their core until they had something that was more stronger than their core.
Isn't that amazing? That's a great story.
Yeah.
I remember when they started, I didn't really even believe it. Like, wait, I don't have to put a stamp on this to return. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to put postage on,
Yeah.
and there's no late fees and all these things.
Yeah.
It was such a revolutionary idea back with
Yeah.
the DVDs and then the
Yeah.
streaming. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
point. You're right.
But it is our core. We are the auto. I mean, we keep saying it, but every time we say it, sometimes I wonder, like, are we really? I don't know. I hope we still are.
Yeah.
But you do see plants going up all over the place.
You do.
And it's our heritage, but can we still let it be our
Yeah.
core?
I mean, you got to be. I look at that. I've said this before too. Is the reason I don't think the film industry is the right one. I mean, we could do things to encourage whatever. I mean, it's a great place to do business
Yeah.
if you're in that business. But the world doesn't really need another Hollywood, and if they do, they now have Georgia. The
Yeah.
world doesn't need another Silicon Valley, and if they do, they have Austin now. I
Yeah.
mean, these you take what you're good at and emphasize that. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, some of it's natural resources.
We
to
have
be
natural
sure.
resources. We make things. We've
Yep.
got plants. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see if this makes a
Well,
comeback.
I
it will.
think, from my study in these documents and what we all know with supply chains and COVID, and what we all know with the realization that we are dependent on fossil fuel. So we might want to have everybody have an EV. Maybe that's a dream, and maybe that's a reality someday. But the world runs on fossil fuel still, and so there's some and green takes mining, and so there's realities that are being now able to be discussed, and we got to capture it. And Michigan's got a lot of those opportunities that
We do.
I hope we can take advantage of.
But there's an example, and I mean, I'm sure people would disagree with me, but there's an example of where you mentioned something, you wait until the time is right. You don't push it. And the EVs are coming. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a Tesla to run around town in, but I mean, they're not there where I could use it. I drive downstate every week, and
Right.
it just isn't feasible for our lives. but it was so pushed that they almost skipped over hybrids. Hybrids are a really good idea, and they the industry quit investing in those because they felt like they had to get to EVs right away, and now they're backing up. And there's some really good options out there. But when I went to buy my truck, I would have bought a hybrid all day long, but they didn't.
I
have
hear
them,
the
so
consumer wants the hybrid the most. Is what I hear.
For now, and that gives the battery
versus the EV for people that have to travel more or something.
100%. Yep. And that gives them the time to develop these things into, the batteries will continue to evolve and they'll work out the bugs and things like that. But
I hear from my friends in the auto industry that the auto companies find hybrids challenging because they got to put 2 engines in the car.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. But some of them are doing incredible things. I saw at the auto show this year, Ram has this incredible new hybrid system where it's not really a gas-powered engine. It has a gas-powered engine in it, but the gas-powered engine doesn't power the wheels. It powers generators that power the hybrid. It's really, it's this cool sort of thing that can go like 600 miles or something for a big Ram truck. It's a neat new technology. So.
I'm being told by your staff that we got to start, so I'll wrap it up.
Oh, okay.
All right, cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we got another 10 minutes.
Cool. On that note, I think one more question before I've got my final one for you. Affordable housing versus job creation. So in communities, you look at Munising as an example. You've seen it somewhat in Traverse City and some of those areas too, where the tourism explodes. Housing gets to be more expensive. People that live there for a long time have a harder time finding housing. They need affordable housing. So if we looked at the map earlier, there's areas of the UP that are having more difficulty than other areas. So you got to work on affordable housing. You got to work on job creation at the same time. How do you do both tracks?
Yeah, I mean, they're so intertwined. It can't. They have to be done together. Right now, I think we're at a stage where we probably need to spend a little bit of time in the short term fixing some of the housing crisis because there have been every business I talk to up north, you can't find people to work there because those people can't find places to live. Okay. Our schools, I've heard example after example of, we don't have enough teachers. We can't hire teachers. Where our schools have literally made job offers to teachers and they came up to look for where they're going to live and they said, I can't find anything. And they go somewhere else. So right now, I think we're not going to.
The media front is to
the
solve
media
that
front
problem.
has got to. You're not going to solve it all at once. And you know what? Here's the thing: this isn't necessarily the government's job to do everything. I mean, some of the, I think I like public-private partnerships. There's things we can do to make it easier for developers to make these projects sort of pencil out, like through tax incentives and these type of things. I'm all willing to do that. But one of the things I'm encouraged about with housing is people are coming up with some really creative ideas. A couple just in our district. One of them was this school housing I talk about because this is a big problem there, where we were able to secure $5 million of an investment to work with the school system outside of Traverse City. The Traverse City area public schools, the Traverse City area Catholic schools, Interlochen Arts Academy, which is a private school, and the ISD all came together. Which anytime those groups can come together, something amazing. Good's happening. And they came up with a plan and approached the state, and we gave them the seed money to get this off the ground to launch some educator housing. That was really creative. I've talked to farmers who are they can't wait anymore, so they're building I've talked to farmers, not just farmers, but also a number of businesses. They're building employee housing right now, which is not a new model. No. I mean, that's how Dearborn got here, and Inkster, in some of these places. Henry Ford needed a place for all these workers to live, so he built towns, or he helped towns get off the ground. And so businesses are a part of the solution. There's just all kinds of little innovative things that are going on right now. We just had I'm on the housing committee, and we just had a presentation related to funding sources for MISHDA, which provides affordable housing, and these are all good things. So I don't think the government just has to write a check for buy people houses. I mean, that's not the United States. That's not the way we work. But we have had a role in creating an economy where people can't buy houses anymore. This wasn't a thing for our parents' generation, and it's a problem for ours. So we have to have a role in fixing it for sure. But I'm with you too because. it sort of grows up step by step. Housing, then we're going to need to work on the job side,
Yep.
and that to me is a real priority. And we talk about Northern Michigan and how we represent the district, and to me that's one of my top priorities. Is I actually am the co-chair of the Hospitality and Tourism Caucus.
Yeah.
Which is important for our district, but I have to say that any economy built only on tourism is sort of like eating candy 3 meals a day. It's not a healthy environment, and I have a personal reason that I want to see us develop a more year-round economy up north with a lot of small to mid-sized manufacturing. It doesn't make sense to put in giant manufacturing plants, but it's because I and so many others are tired of watching our kids grow up and leave. I mean, I have 4 kids, one's still at home, and then a 28-year-old, 26-year-old, 24-year-old. 2 of them live in Virginia, one's in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And I miss them, and I want them home.
Yeah,
But they can't find the jobs that they're looking for up north. So it is. I mean, it's a little chicken before the egg, but those two things need to grow up together. As
a senator, is there something that you say a primary measurement of success if you look back at your Senate position? Is there one thing that you would say this would be an indicator of success?
Well, yeah, there is. It's funny you ask that because it's actually a really good question because I was wrestling with this. I'm running for re-election now, but in November, I had some doubts. I was thinking, is this isn't a productive role in the sense that I'm used to. I mean, I was a productive member of society, and you could see what you're doing, and I would finish a project, and we'd move on to the next project, and these type of things. And the legislature is sort of wishy-washy. I mean, you can work on projects, on bills till you're blue in the face, and you never know if they're going to pass or not. So I sort of came to the conclusion I need to benchmark it differently. And one of the things is if I can. This is hard to measure, but I'm trying to model a different type of leadership around here and to show people back home and even down here that we can be kind to one another and treat each other with respect and honor and grace and civility and still be good leaders of this state. And I feel like just based on the relationships I built, I'm accomplishing that. And by the response some people have to me, but I'd be real proud to just sort of know I made a little impact in that regard. But there is a policy that I'd love to see. And this is human trafficking. That this was, I want to see these bills pass before I go home. And I'll tell you why is because of both what it is and how it came about. I was last year, was listening to a speech where the Attorney General said she never thought there'd be meaningful legislation passed ever in Michigan because no legislators had the will to pass it for human trafficking. And she even got sort of political as to why. And she and I are on opposite planets, I'm sure, intellectually and politically, no question about it. But I was all mad when I heard this. But then I got to thinking, well, no. I mean, that's a problem. And so I went up to her after the State of the State address in 2025, and I said, I heard you give this speech. I said, I was a little annoyed at first because I thought you were being political, but if you doubt whether there's a legislator who's willing to do meaningful things, I am. And it was interesting because I could tell she was testing me because and I had already thought through this because she was concerned that no legislator would be willing to go after the demand side too because she thought all of these people are off doing sleazy things and stuff and they're not going to go after. And so she was testing me, will you go after the demand side? I said, absolutely I will. It's a core conviction of mine because these people are out thinking they're just having a fun time and their actions are literally enslaving another human being. And so I started talking to her. She put me in touch with her people. This is somebody who everybody in my party would have wanted me to run from. Because, I mean, it's just, she is so political on her side and all this stuff. But this was a great experience working with her whole office. And it started with me having to admit that I guess, if I'm being honest, I don't really know what human trafficking is. I mean, I generally know, but you don't ever see
the depths of it.
Yeah, and it's not like I see signs, I know what's happening. So they gave me training on this. We spent hours going through what's happening right beneath our noses, and it's horrible. And we were able to work together. I stood shoulder to shoulder with her at a press conference. And one of the things that I feel strongly about is that in the past year and a half has been totally squandered in Lansing because we're in divided government now with the Republicans control the House, Democrats, Senate, and then we have Governor Whitmer. And And that could have been such a great opportunity for the state to get rid of these extremes and to go for things that just matter to people. And so the bottom line is we ended up working together closely, and finally, after over a year, we passed it through the Senate unanimously.
Oh, damn.
And they're not taking it up in the House, I think, because Dana Nessel's involved. But I want to leave Lansing having accomplished these bills. And I'll tell you what the bills do is there's nothing you can do to just eliminate human trafficking. I mean, it's already illegal, and people are still doing it. But what I said to the Attorney General is, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a law enforcement guy, but I want to know whatever bills we do, that 2 years from now, there will be a significant number of women and children and even men who are waking up that day not being trafficked, who otherwise would have been were it not for our bills. And that's what we have here. And I just think that would be something that I could quietly sit back and say, you know what? You made a difference on some people's lives. It's those type of things that matter.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that story. It's good to see that's happening.
Yeah.
We'll and it is an area that we have heard, but we're not really familiar with. So
that's a whole nother episode here for what's happening. But people need to learn about this because it's scary, the threats that are out there for our kids. So.
Well, I appreciate the time, man.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to see you and spend some time with you. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
No, thank you for doing this. And again, this is so important. I hope you just keep doing this and keep growing in your audience, because people need to be thinking deeper about issues out there and not just these sort of one-liner headlines that you see out there. But this stuff is way more complicated, and it requires people to really understand what's happening in order to make any positive
That's what
change.
I always realize. It's always so much more complicated than I think it is on the surface.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, James. Yeah.
All right.